We just saw Dune Part 2. You probably just saw Dune Part 2. Let's fucking talk about it.
Yes! Welcome to Gom Jabar, your guide to the iconic world of Dune. We'll be exploring the themes, philosophies, and characters found in the sandy depths of this vast universe, from Frank Herbert's groundbreaking novels to the adaptations on film and TV. And film.
Oh.
My name's Abu.
My name's Leo.
Leo, we saw the movie.
We saw the movie. My God. So fucking good. If you're listening to this, you saw it too.
That's right.
Seriously. If you didn't see it, stop listening. What are you doing? Leave.
Drop and roll.
Stop, drop, and then
into
roll.
your local IMAX theater.
Roll right into those voting booths. Roll to the whatever it was. Yeah, this movie was incredible, and you deserve to see it totally fresh. We are going to be spoiling it today. So make sure you've seen it. This episode will be there waiting for you.
That's right.
When you're done. And my goal with this episode is it's going to be the exciting conversation that you might want to have right out of the theater. So go see it. And then once you've seen it in the theater, preferably IMAX, pop your little budsies into your earsies, hit playsies, and listen to us zzz's.
Indeed, zzz's.
Yeah.
And look, if you haven't seen the movie yet, but you're still dying to know what we think about it, don't you worry, we got you covered. Look back in the feed. We've already released a completely spoiler-free review of Dune Part 2. So go check that out instead. Then go watch the movie. Then come back and listen to this. Order of operations.
Indeed. That's what we were taught in elementary school. Now, before we begin, of course, as always, a huge, huge shout out to our Kwisatz Haderach level patrons. We have 5 Kwisatz Haderach level patrons, and those are Case Aiken, Daniel Dion, Roman Caballo, Jonathan Lambert, and C. R. Spruill.
Wow.
Thank you to all of the Kwisatz Haderach level patrons, but of course, all of our patrons. You make what we do possible.
You do. Okay, housekeeping out of the way, spoiler warning out of the way. We've given you ample time to back out of this episode if you haven't watched the movie yet.
Yeah.
Here's the game plan. So, in some sort of attempt to restrain ourselves and stop this episode from becoming a 6-hour worm ride through the whole film.
That one's later. Yeah.
That one is coming. We've instead, for today's discussion, each picked 3 topics that we want to talk about and geek out about.
Yep.
Now, if you are hungry for that 6-hour worm ride deep dive analysis of the movie, like we did for Dune Part 1, not to worry. Like we said, that is coming. We just need an opportunity to see the film again, take some more notes, refresh our memories. And then, obviously, an episode like that takes a lot of production time and production work. So we ask for your patience. That episode is coming.
Indeed it is. But before we get into that, we're going to take a quick break. So, dear listener, don't go anywhere. When we're back, we're talking about Dune Part 2.
Oh my God. Welcome back, everyone. Leo, let's get into the first topic you chose for our conversation today. What do you want to talk about?
Oh my God. I got to talk about the fights. I got to talk about the fight choreography, the battles, the fights. Unbelievable.
Truly.
I had so much fun in these different fights, and I wanted to take a moment to just celebrate the ones that are still very much like front of mind.
Let's do it.
First, oh my gosh, that first tense encounter with the Harkonnen patrol, the Fremen literally just going fucking bye. Hey, you two stay here, and then leaving. Hilarious. Seeing the Harkonnen soldiers suspenser climb up the rock.
Oh, and the music kicks in at that moment.
Oh, so good. That song sounded so good. And we see them shoot the thumper. They're like, the rats are calling a worm. They shoot the thumper. We are seeing Harkonnen strategy that has evolved out of conflicts with the Fremen. What cool world building.
Amazing.
So cool. And they get sniped. I couldn't tell if it was like Mala pistol or some other kind of projectile, but fucking great. Paul has to get his second kill. That little fight, that little skirmish was great. And then, of course, Jessica right into teaching him lessons. Delightful.
Yeah,
what a great way to start
open
the movie.
the film, right? Because it is like the first true scene of the film. We have a couple of like title card stuff happen, but this is like we're in the movie now, and it starts off with a banger.
And again, it's picking us up timeline-wise. It's just such a great way to welcome us into the next part.
Right.
Now, the next moment that I wanted to highlight is the Fremen raid on the Harkonnen spice harvester.
Oh my goodness.
So fucking cool. Starts with the sand snorkels, and then they burst out. They're sprinting in the shadows. They're killing people. It's so fucking cool.
I've said this before in a previous episode, but I will never tire of watching Fremen emerge from the sand,
just
full
appear.
Like dead sprint, like Usain Bolt right at a Harkonnen, knife in hand.
Yeah. 0 to full sprint.
It just never not looks cool. It happens
so cool.
a couple of times in this film, and it happens very well in this spice harvester scene. And the way they time the beats of the music to hit just as they emerge from the sand and charge the Harkonnens. Oh my goodness.
Also, like the awareness, they're close to the spice harvester. They're using it as cover, basically, from the ornithopter. And they just mow through these Harkonnen soldiers totally out of their depths, ducking underneath the spice harvester and then going to the other side. And then, of course, the moment where Paul fights the two, one of them gets past him, almost gets to Johnny, and he goes, "Johnny!" And she just turns and is like, "Yeah, what?" And shoots the rocket point blank. Blip!
That reaction time, incredible.
Oh, my God. We were in a theater with movie critics, and everyone laughed. It was like just the incredulity of that gutsy move.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I also love this little moment. Paul says, "I'll tell you when to fire. I'm going to get them to shoot at me. Don't worry. I've got this." He gets ready to run. He starts running toward the other like forward arm of the spice harvester.
Right.
And it starts moving, and he goes to himself, "Oh, shit. Like, fuck my plan." And then the gunner shoots at him, misses him, it seems by chance, like almost purely because Paul got lucky. But you imagine seeing this from the Fremen perspective at a distance. You don't hear Paul going, "Oh, shit, man, my plan is gone. Oh, fuck."
Right.
You're just seeing him run confidently into the open, dodging all of the bullets, allowing Johnny to take it down.
Right. As if he were some sort of... I don't know.
If only there were... No, I don't know.
I have no idea.
No, I was gonna... No. Yeah, no, nothing comes to mind. Yeah, it's very cool to see the little moments that in the book, of course, Paul says, of course, anytime I do anything, they're going to reinterpret this as like divine action.
Yep.
But we're seeing that, and it's not even like dwelled upon or called out. It's just like we're allowed to, as an audience, put those dots together.
Yeah.
Not to mention every moment that they're next to that giant spice harvester factory, I believed it was real. Like, I just believed it was fully 100% next to them. I do not know how they shot this sequence without building a literal working spice harvester factory.
Right.
It's wild.
Incredible stuff. Yeah, the visuals were stunning. This was like full-on war movie action scene taking place in the desert.
Yeah.
And I know there's some critics out there who think Denis Villeneuve doesn't know how to do action. They're fucking wrong.
Villeneuve was like, "Hold my beer and my shot of Fireball whiskey. Hold my laser gun. Hold everything. I'm throwing hands."
Yeah.
Now, quickly, Fade Routha's Colosseum fight was fucking cool. I loved just the way that they showed how psychotic Fade is, but he also, once he's in the arena and he's in the fight, he did have his own kind of twisted sense of pride and honor, right? Like, he's fighting Roger Yuan, returning as Lieutenant Lanville, his character, that we saw called out in the first movie. He's also, by the way, the fight coordinator and stunt coordinator for this whole fucking movie. So dude's doing double duty, not only being in the movie, but also making it work. So cool. Mm-hmm. I loved the moment that the slaver puts the hook in his back, like, "I'm helping." And Fade is like, fucking back off.
Right.
Don't touch him. Yeah. Like that feeling of like, this needs to be a fair fight. And I love that "you fought well, Atreides" is his response to Roger, to Landville.
Yes.
And then when he gets killed by Paul, same thing. "You fought well, Atreides." He's just out here having a good old time.
Right. He's got his own like twisted sense of honor.
Yeah.
And you can tell, I really like that you pointed out, like, there is this sense of like, oh, this guy's like crazy, right? He's psychotic. This is insane. And this is all spectacle. But once we're in the Colosseum and he's faced with real danger, my guy's all business.
Yeah, totally.
He's like, I'm actually an incredible fucking fighter.
Right.
Austin Butler made that transition very well and was excellent and not leaning too hard into the, haha, I'm just crazy.
Yeah, totally. And even from the book, Fade Rautha is kind of a child in that scene. Like, he's like worried, and then he's like, well, what do you think of that, father? And it's like very Draco Malfoy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
This felt so much more formidable and intimidating in a very good way.
Yes.
I just believed in Fade Rautha as this like formidable character. Very, very cool.
Agreed.
And then the final fight that I wanted to talk about, of course, is the final duel. There's other huge fights, but those were fun spectacles. I think the finale duel between Paul and Fade was one of the most important fights in the movie. Mm-hmm. If it had flopped, the entire movie would have felt anticlimactic. And I fucking loved the fight. Yep. I thought it was great. There was great like moments of clear action. We know what's happening. There's a couple of bullshit things like the weird flip that he does halfway through the fight. I'm like, did you need to? You didn't. I liked it.
I liked the flip.
I liked the flip.
Not only is it the like 10% more anime that I've been asking for since Dune Part 1, but also the flip is almost like a signature Paul Atreides Fedaykin Fremen move, because we see him do a flip in his vision in the gold armor in the first movie, right? He does like a flippity flip. So I almost see this as like a Paul Atreides like signature move that he
kind of does it against the training dummy too, doesn't he? In the room, just like alone.
He's a bit more acrobatic in his fighting style, perhaps, than like the very cold, calculating, and aggressive Fade.
Yeah. That's very, very, it's a good point. And again, as much as I bring it up as like did you need to do that? I very much liked it. It was great.
Yeah.
Also, Paul getting fucking stabbed and just stepping back and having the knife sticking out of him was like, this is the most anime, because like you want, like we're done with the like hero ends the battle completely unscathed. We want to see the main character bust up his arm Deku style, like from My Hero Academia. We want to see characters put blood, sweat, and tears into a fight, and we want to see it cost something. So seeing Paul with that fucking knife out of his side, and then the slow knife being brought into his shoulder, and then him just letting that happen in order to take the knife out of his own stomach and kill Fade Rautha with it. Anime! Fucking anime! It was so good.
Incredible.
Also, tiny detail, Paul says, "May thy knife chip and shatter," while also doing the Atreides salute. Very cool. He is Paul Muad'Dib Atreides.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just exactly the finale that I wanted the movie to have.
Yeah.
That fight was so good.
That fight was so good.
So that's my first thing. Just these fights. I think that they were a very important part of the movie, and I think they were done just masterfully.
Yep. What
is your first thing, Abu?
My God, we need to talk about this. Embryo!
Yeah.
My
Holy
goodness.
shit.
Holy shit, indeed. Embryo Alia.
Yeah.
Look, we have spent weeks, months speculating about how the heck Denis Villeneuve and this film were going to handle Alia, perhaps the weirdest part of the second half of the book.
Agreed.
Somehow they kept it all under wraps for so long. And it truly wasn't until last week, when the film was finally doing like premieres in Mexico, premieres in London, that Anya Taylor-Joy started appearing at those premiere films. And we finally, basically the rumors were finally confirmed that she was cast as Alia in the movie.
Yeah.
So yes, Alia's in the movie. Yes, she's played by Anya Taylor-Joy, but no, she is not some talking, walking baby. And overall, her role is diminished, right? Like, she is a less significant part of this story. And most of her interactions are through a game of telephone through her mom.
Yeah. Her mom's the, like, mech that she's piloting.
So anime.
I have a message from the baby inside of me. What's the baby inside of you say? She says, you're too in love.
That's
like,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. Classic Little Sisters, man. Always critiquing.
Yeah.
So, wow. Oh my God. So much to say here. Alia, simply an embryo in Jessica's womb, and she mainly communicates through her mother. This does mean that, obviously, this big change necessitates other big changes in the plot. Perhaps the biggest one is that Alia is not the one to kill the Baron. Paul walks up and does that himself, knife to the old throat. In my opinion, is this a huge, like, significant change to the film that breaks with, like, major themes in the story or sets up, like, huge plot holes in later films? No. The Baron died, and it was one of the Atreides that killed him. The facts are still effectively the same. The other change that happens because of embryo Alia is the length of time Paul and Jessica spend in the desert.
Yeah.
In the movie, it's not made clear. No one actually says, like, oh, today is November 1st. Like, we don't know the dates. And it's left vague how long Paul and Jessica are with the Fremen, how long his training is, when he finally takes his sandworm ride exam, all of that stuff. And I'm sure it's left sort of elusive on purpose, because the reality is that it's got to be less than 9 months, or else Alia would have been born by then. And thus that time is shortened, because in the book we know the time skip is, I think, 2 years, a little over 2 years. And that timeline has been compressed. And I will say, this is something that you and I discussed, and something I believe you and I were pretty certain would happen, was that there would be some sort of timeline adjustment to accommodate a different Alia. And that's exactly what happened in the film.
Yeah. The only mystery was how, like, wizened Gurney looks after, like, 2 months, 3 months. That beard came in fast.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've seen it happen to Ben Solo, or we've seen it, whatever. Who was Obi-Wan? I guess Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
went from Ewan McGregor to...
Look, the desert does weird things to your body and hair, so we're going to give him a pass on that. I'm also, like, my hair grows so fast, like, I can't get haircuts fast enough, frankly.
Oh,
like,
really?
If I actually cut my hair as much as I should to keep it maintained, I'd be well in the red in my budget. So, some people just grow hair fast, man. Gurney's got those good genes.
Sure.
One other change I wanted to quickly call out is that, yes, we see Anya Taylor-Joy in Paul's coma vision. Paul does, like, quote-unquote, meet her and speak with her, and she is presumably the one that tells him about their Harkonnen lineage. Very cool that we get to see what is presumably Messiah Alia, the Alia that we will see in the next movie. And she looks appropriately aged up. She looks like right about the correct age that she was in the book. Perhaps a couple more years added on to make it less teenage creepiness. I think it's perfect. I loved how that was handled. That's my take on this whole Alia thing. It's perfect. It's exactly how I believe Alia should have been handled in this film, to walk that very fine line of honoring the source material, setting up the next movie, but also not losing audiences on making it too weird with a walking preborn baby that you probably have to, like, awkwardly CGI.
Right.
So I love it. It was a great decision to make this change, in my opinion. And this somehow already has me hyped for Dune Messiah, because now I can't wait to see Anya Taylor-Joy as Messiah. I love that casting as well.
Yeah, she's great. She's amazing.
Okay, what's your second topic of discussion?
This one's pretty quick. Just like the generations of the Fremen. I think in this movie we see a lot of the juxtaposition of, like, the young Fremen with Chani and Shishakli against, like, Stilgar and the other elders, right?
Right.
And putting it as, like, basically like Gen Z, Millennial, Gen Alpha, like younger Northern Fremen versus those kind of more superstitious, more traditional Southern Fremen who are they believe in desert jinns, and they
Right.
believe in all this like hokey Reverend Mother Sayadina stuff. Like, that is a change, right? Like, in the book, Chani is a Sayadina. She's a Reverend Mother in training, and is kind of bought in on it. Like, she's the one that brings the water of life to Jessica. She's part of the ceremony in the book. Here, they're outside being like, yo, whoever drinks poison's a fucking idiot. Got him, high-fiving each other. Like, it's very different, but it feels very, very familiar to modern audiences, especially this like wave of generations who are now grappling with their parents' traditions and their parents' beliefs and going, oh, maybe I don't super buy into all of that. It feels very flushed out. Like, it makes the Fremen culture feel very much more real and very much more thought about. And it dodges this kind of caricature of the kind of desert, superstitious, primitive culture who's just all ghosts and, mythology.
Right. Yeah.
It's so cool. It's this kind of balancing act that I really appreciated. I also just will say, I'll finish on saying I fucking loved Shishakli.
Yeah. Oh my
so
gosh.
much. Like, I think, like many people, I was like, why the fuck is this a character? This is a character who came up like twice in the book.
Right.
And yet she has all this screen time. She's got a bunch of lines. She's talking back and forth. But in a movie where we had to be convinced that Chani, who in the last movie said almost nothing to Paul at all, was actively falling in love with him and reevaluating him and taking into consideration these different qualities of his, giving Chani a peer, like a girlfriend to like chat with whom
maybe
she
a
could...
former lover?
Maybe a former lover, sure.
No, I didn't get that vibe. But,
I didn't either, but,
there's probably going to be like a fanfic out there soon. So.
Oh, for sure. Because it's good. If it exists, there's porn of it, right?
Yes, that's right.
But this is someone that she could actually use as like a sounding board. Like, we got a peek into Chani's psyche as she's going, well, Paul's not like the other Offworlders.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to give Chani's character depth and to give a voice to the younger Fremen, this younger generation of Fremen. And also, we see some of Chani's social circle. They're laughing. They're off in a little, like, lean-to, making jokes and shit. And Paul's like, what are you laughing about?
Is there a room at the table?
Is there a room at the table? And they're like, no, idiot, shut up.
My mom packed cookies
Lunchable.
for everyone.
I have a Lunchable if you want my Capri Sun. And I'll also point out that Suhaila Yaqub, whose name I still probably am butchering, did such an amazing job. I mean, imagine coming to the table and it's like Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Javier Bardem, Rebecca Ferguson. These are your scene partners.
Right.
So, like, fucking amazing job. Great job. It's just a shame that Elvis shot her with a full flamethrower. Yeah, it was that's my second takeaway, the Fremen generation.
Yeah, I love it. I couldn't agree more. It gives us a fuller Fremen culture than we even got in the book. And the book goes very in depth about Fremen culture, especially latter books, and especially the Dune Encyclopedia. Much of that we've talked about on this podcast. But I think in the movie, you don't have time to dive into Dune Encyclopedia amounts of lore. You have to show that this culture is nuanced and has depth and three-dimensional, and not, as you stated earlier, just this like superstitious cult of weirdos out in the fucking desert who believe in that thing.
Yeah.
And this achieves that perfectly. Having Shishakli there, having Chani there, having the younger Fremen question the prophecy achieves that.
It's so good.
It's so good. Well, I do have a bit more to say about the prophecy and the Fremen, but let's take a quick breather, Leo. But dear listener, don't go anywhere. When we come back, there's still much more to chat about, so we will see you in just a minute with more Dune Part 2.
Welcome back, everybody. Never you fear. We've got more thoughts about Dune Part 2.
In our brains.
We're about to say them out loud. The next thing up is another of yours, Abu. What's your next pick?
Okay, so I wanted to chat for a little bit about Stilgar, my guy. Stilgar the Believer in particular.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved how well this film handled this very delicate and messy question of the prophecy.
Yeah.
How do we show the prophecy? How do we question the prophecy? How do we make it clear that the prophecy is manipulation? There's all of these balls to juggle when it comes to the Lisan al-Gaib. And this movie uses its characters to full effect. Because on one side we have Jessica pushing that Bene Gesserit narrative, that Missionaria Protectiva, Lisan al-Gaib. She's being political, she's being religious, she's being manipulative, she's being strategic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the other side, we have Stilgar. My guy believes in this prophecy, has always believed it down to his bones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Javier Bardem's amazing performance in capturing that fanaticism was incredible. It wonderfully embodied all of this about the prophecy, how someone can be so steeped in it and how someone can be so manipulated by it. And I really loved that it also touched on this idea of the colonizer versus the indigenous people, and how Stilgar, who of course is indigenous Fremen, can so vehemently and so fully fall for this like colonizer narrative that's been planted within his people.
Right. Yeah.
He's a believer through and through. He's a man of faith. And like those fundamentalist Fremen from the deep south, from below the Mason-Dixonite here, the prophecy like fully shapes his worldview. He's out here collecting water for a dream of a green Arrakis. He's out here looking for signs of the Lisan al-Gaib. And that fanaticism is clear from the moment we arrive in Siege Tabur at the start of the film. Because there's a scene where Stilgar has to sit down and basically convince this like council of elders to accept Paul and Jessica, to accept these outsiders in their community. And he gives them the sales pitch that I got the sense they've gotten a number of times from him already.
Yeah.
This is the one. The signs are all there. He is the Lisan al-Gaib. Trust me.
I think one of them literally says, you've said this before.
Yeah.
Like, again,
Right.
You're saying this.
Right. And so to make him like the believer, the fanatic, puts this whole prophecy in a much different context than in the book. Because one of the failings of the book, I would say, is making it seem like the Fremen are this homogenous group who all believe.
Right.
And here, as you stated in your topic as well, that's not true.
Right.
Even among the Fremen, there are skeptics, and there's clearly a divide between which Fremen believe in the Messiah and which don't. And what I really loved, and like I wanted to stand up and shake my fist in the air when someone said this, I love the divide between the young Fremen and the old-fashioned Fremen like Stilgar. Chani, Shishakli on one side, Stilgar and some of the elders and believers on the other side. At one point, during a disagreement with Stilgar, he's like, "Oh, just wait, you'll see. Trust me, he's the Lisan al-Gaib." One of the younger Fremen, I don't know if it's actually Shishakli or Chani who says this, but one of them says, the Lisan al-Gaib should be Fremen, and we should be saved by one of our own.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness. I felt that like deep in my bones. And the way this movie like challenges these ideas of Fremen and challenges what is so often mistaken about the book as a white savior story, right?
Right.
Even these Fremen are here like, I don't want this white boy saving anything. I'll save myself.
Yeah.
Incredible. And this line was repeated more than once in the film, and I feel like that was very intentional, and they were very delicate in their treatment of that.
Yeah, even because I think Paul and Chani at one point talk about it. He's like, well, I have a Fremen name now. And she's like,
right.
You are accepted among the Fremen, but you are not like from the desert.
Exactly, yeah.
Again, that is something that continues to be true and resonant through Dune Messiah as well. Like, it's such a important piece of Paul is and never becomes fully Fremen.
Yes.
He is always the young man from Caladan.
Yeah, totally. Such a great point. So to wrap up what I wanted to say about Stilgar here, ultimately, as we know from both the book and this movie, the Bene Gesserit manipulation is quite strong. The breeding program can't be topped. Paul's got those genes. Those visions are still happening.
Yep.
And Paul's legend inevitably begins to grow, helped along by Jessica as the new Reverend Mother, sort of stoking the flames. And we see Stilgar fall deeper and deeper into his belief. I loved that naming ceremony in the movie came later.
Yeah.
In the book, it happens like right away. Jameis fight, naming ceremony, Usul, Muad'Dib, you're one of us, you know?
Yeah.
In the movie, he has to earn that. He goes through some of the trainings. He goes through some battles and like literally sheds blood, sweat, and tears with the Fremen out there before they accept him and give him the name Usul. But I loved how Stilgar, in particular, didn't just think the name Muad'Dib was cute, but found a reason to make it another thing that proved his point. Lisan al-Gaib, Muad'Dib, such a fitting name. It fits with the prophecy.
Totally.
Just falling deeper into that fanaticism.
Absolutely. It's also Shishakli's suggestion that he needs a name. And again, to see the young Fremen accepting Paul, even if they are still skeptical of the sort of mysticism, is also a demonstration of like, what is Paul doing? He's fighting, he's being acknowledged, he's proving himself. And it's not just, well, we go through the ceremony. You killed one of us. You are now accepted among us. Okay, we give you a name. Bureaucracy.
Right.
It's like, hey, idea. Yo, my name's Shishakli. I gotta give him a name. Stilgar. And Stilgar's like, oh shit, that's a good idea. I'll call him Usul. And Paul's like, Usul, fuck yeah. And they're like, what do you? So good.
Yeah,
and
it's so good.
Agreed. I really like that moment where everyone laughs because Paul's like, what do you call the bouncing mouse? And everyone's like, ha, 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 ha. But Stilgar's like, no. Makes his own water. We follow all this shit. Very, very cool. And fucking Irulan later even repeats what Stilgar says. Muad'Dib shows the way for the Fremen.
Yeah.
So this is like clearly, it's so cool. Yeah, anyway.
Right. It seeps into the legend, and Muad'Dib takes on more than just being a mouse. It's wonderful stuff.
Yeah, it's so good.
The final thing I'll say is, my God, I had chills through this whole scene, but the moment late in the film where Paul finally declares himself Duke of Arrakis, and he finally fully takes on the Messiah role. I am your fucking Messiah. Look at me. I am the Lisan al-Gaib. Your grandma loved spaghetti. Okay?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, oh my God, my grandma's secret
She did
recipe.
love spaghetti.
How did you know? And he's like, I know every goddamn ingredient in your grandma's secret recipe. I am the Lisan al-Gaib.
He's just like cold reading. It had marinara sauce. It fucking did have marinara sauce.
What the fuck?
It
Oh my
had
God.
garlic. The other Fremen are like, did it have garlic? Oh my God, that sounds really good. Is your granny, does she still make it?
Absolutely stunning scene.
Yeah.
Recipes aside. And again, hats off to Javier Bardem for the fucking acting.
Yeah.
Because we see Stilgar fall to his knees. This is a moment of revelation. This is a moment of miracle. In his lifetime, this man who has believed for so long is now seeing the Lisan al-Gaib, is now seeing the prophecy come true. Can you imagine what that feels like? Javier Bardem certainly did imagine, and we saw it all over his face in that scene.
Not to mention, we see throughout, because Paul is very like, I am not the Mahdi.
Yes.
I am not the Lisan al-Gaib. And Stilgar is like, I'm going to choose to believe that he's being humble in spite of everything. And I'm going to demonstrate my faith by clinging to this belief that he is actually, despite his word, the Mahdi, the Lisan al-Gaib.
Yeah.
So that also is a moment of validation for him, because this whole time, I'm sure there have been Fremen going, God, give it a fucking rest, Stilgar. Didn't you hear him 2 days ago? He said he wasn't.
Yes.
And then he's going, oh, I was right. I was right to believe in spite of what he was telling me. Everything, it's like that collapsing of doubt. Oh, it's so good.
It's so good, so good. So hats off to Javier Bardem. Hats off to the filmmakers for handling this prophecy perfectly.
Yeah.
And with such delicacy, and for somehow managing to get such a complex idea across through characters like Stilgar and Jessica.
Between the crazy fight scenes. It's like,
right.
What a balancing act. And they just did it so well.
They did it so well. Okay. What is your third and final topic you wanted to touch on today?
I wouldn't be a host
of
Gom Jabar.
Gom Jabar, it's in the name.
Without bringing up the Gom Jabar scene. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh my God. Both of us looked at each other in like shock and awe when this happened.
I cannot believe it. Denis Villeneuve deciding to show Margot Fenring basically seducing Fade, bringing him to her room, and then putting him through the human test? Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh my God.
This is one of the most brilliant moves I've ever seen by an adaptation, like a director doing an adaptation.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome.
Yes.
And I just want to go through that timeline quickly because there are so many elements of it. It's probably one of my favorite sequences in the movie.
Yeah.
So Margot, right? Léa Seydoux. Oh, unbelievable.
My God.
Such a good performer. She's also great in like The French Dispatch, and she's an amazing actress. Love her. Following Fade into a restricted wing of Harco City. The strobe-like black and white fireworks. So cool. And then the fact that she kind of like gently eases into fucking with his mind, right? Like,
yeah.
He's like, I'm going to kill you for following me. She's like, or maybe I'm lost. And then it just like becomes this weird dream sequence with like the flickering and her face is like partially obscured. So cool. And then him ending up in a different part of the city or the palace and not knowing how he got there. We are seeing like the most masterful use of the voice where it's not someone going, drink the poison, let him do it. You know, like the many, many times we see the voice in this movie.
Yeah.
We are seeing her guiding him without him even being conscious of it. 15 out of 10. What an incredible sequence. And also, what young man wouldn't follow when he's like, where are you going? She's like, into my bedroom. Turns and leaves. I nearly climbed over the seat in front of me to get to the screen to maybe try to get to that bedroom.
I was seduced.
I was fully seduced. My belt buckle came undone. It was incredible. Now, all of this builds up to her hitting him with the, like, kneel. And it's like, oh my God. Oh my God. And then he kneels in front of her. Fade fucking Ralpha kneeling in the bed chamber of a strange woman. And she's like, put your hand in the box. It's not a metaphor. It's a literal box. Insane. The Gom Jabar at his neck. My jaw was on the floor. I couldn't believe it. So cool. We have talked at length, ad nauseum, about Fade Rautha as a necessary counterpoint to Paul. Like Paul and Fade as mirror pieces of the puzzle of the Kwisatz Haderach.
Yeah.
They're parts of the breeding program. Fade needs to be that sort of antagonist figure to Paul, but also shouldn't be an evil caricature.
Yeah.
So seeing Margot putting him through the same, and the shot sequence being very similar, the look down at the box.
Right. The kneeling, the
kneeling, and then the pan over to her holding the needle.
Oh, it was intentionally mirroring.
It was so
from the first film.
Good. This is like, if I were to argue, I don't know that I fully believe this. I think I'm getting there. We'll see how the final movie handles everything. But I think this is a better telling of Dune than Dune. And I think this is one of the moments that very much is a part of that argument, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Villeneuve is a genius.
Like, does it change?
Yeah.
Like, we could get nitpicky here, right? We could be like, oh, but in the lore, like, you know, like, he's not the Kwisatz Haderach. Like, we could get nitpicky about that because, yeah, technically speaking, in the breeding program, he's not a candidate. But this change not only makes the parallel of Paul and Fade so much more beautiful in this film, adds so much more tension to that final fight.
Yeah.
But the end result is also the same. He dies.
Yeah.
So, great. Nothing else to change about Messiah. He still dies.
And again, just to be clear, the Bene Gesserit do the Gom Jabar test on all sorts of fucking people.
Right.
They need to make sure they're using it as a filter to make sure they're not breeding animals with humans. So he passes the Gom Jabar test. We don't see him pass, but he shows up at the end.
Yes.
I also like that she's like, he enjoys pain. Oh, I bet he was like, this is such good foreplay. Fuck, this box is... Can I keep the box? What else can I put in the box? Can I put anything in the box?
Anything?
She's like, this is not... I'm kind of into it, though. Like, this is...
Oh, yeah. Oh, there were some BD and SM.
Yeah, 100%.
All happening in that seduction that night.
He's just happy to have someone who's, like, brave enough to take the reins, you know? Figurative or literal.
Indeed.
Yeah, very, very incredible. I love that. I can't believe we got a second Gom Jabar sequence. Incredible. So happy.
Yeah.
That's my final point, but naturally I wanted to lightning style. Just single bullet points. Classic Leo
It wouldn't
move.
be Gom Jabar if you didn't do that.
No one can
I'm here
fucking
for
stop
it.
me. Let's go.
Let's go.
Paul's anger as Muad'Dib shouting at the Fremen. Where did Timothée Chalamet get that force of
Yes.
personhood? My God, it was incredible.
Scary.
Electric. The tech throughout the movie was so cool. Sand snorkels, wind traps. We got the cistern. We got those little mobile water injector pump things that like
Yes.
Chani was like pulling the water from the still living guy. And he's like, stop. And she's like, fuck off. I'm taking your water.
So
like, what do you
good.
want?
So
good. The pirate sail on the smuggler's carryall.
Yes.
Fucking cool. Also just the black and white shield. The shield in black and white on the Giddy Prime like Coliseum fight looks so fucking cool.
Oh my God.
Next point, Cheops. Cool. Next point, the set design in this film was fucking awesome. The Siege Tabur looked incredible. I can't wait to go frame by frame and to look at all the writing on the walls.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Oh my God.
Chiton was so lush and beautiful. The bird song constantly in the background.
Oh my goodness. I need to vacation on Chiton.
I want to live there. It's so nice. And then Giddy Prime felt like a shitty nightclub. It was perfect.
Yes.
So good. Stilgar, next point. Stilgar, funniest character in the movie.
Laugh out loud funny.
God damn it, he's so funny. Javier Bardem is a national treasure of every nation.
Hand that Nabe a mic and get him on a stage in the Comedy Cellar tonight.
Yeah, his crowd work, unparalleled. Yeah, the line about the gin is so funny. He's like, ha, boo, okay. No, but seriously, be careful.
So funny.
Gurney, we talked about this. Gurney Halleck as the key to the House Atreides family atomics.
Oh my goodness.
So fucking smart. It makes so much goddamn sense.
It makes so much sense that you're kind of like, why wasn't this in the book?
Come on, Frank. Why didn't you put that in the book, Frank?
Incredible.
So good. Also, that whole sequence was so funny. Like, that's a dumb place to hide them. Well, did you find them?
Yeah.
No.
Right. What a
Well.
genius way to get that, like, Gurney Stilgar banter in there.
They're dads. They're just both dads arguing. I love it. So
Love it.
cute.
So good.
And then finally, of course, I mentioned this earlier, but again, just Alia's presence in the movie. So bold, so fucking cool, done beautifully. I'm over the moon. What a great movie.
What a great movie.
Okay, Abu, what's your final pick?
Okay. My final pick gets a little bit more meta.
Sure.
Because I've said this before on the podcast. This should not be surprising to anyone that I'm saying this. The Fremen are brown people.
Yeah.
They are based heavily on Arabic and Muslim culture that Frank was inspired by and borrowed from. That's like, that's fact.
Yeah.
Every other adaptation that we've talked about on this podcast casts the Fremen as white people.
Yeah.
In the deep desert, in the scorching sun.
Yeah. I got a sunburn watching this movie. I'm a white person. The math doesn't math. Even
The
remotely.
math simply doesn't math. And every time I watch another adaptation, I'm like, did we read the same fucking book?
We did talk about how they just like cast all the people from the place where they were filming, and it was like the Czech Republic, so they're all Czech. But you're right. Like Lynch, no excuse. And generally, fly some fucking people in. Go to Morocco. It's not that far off, you know?
No
Jesus.
excuse.
No excuse.
Finally, in Dune Part 2, Denis Villeneuve has put faces of color among the Fremen.
Yeah.
Finally, someone gets it right and honors the original inspiration for these characters. Frank borrowed from a culture, and thus, when we see that culture on screen, we need to see the inspiration. And we finally do here. Loved it. And here's the thing. That's not where this film stops. They didn't just go, well, Fremen, we need to cast people of color for these roles. Cool, done, check mark, let's move on. No, they took it a step further. Because throughout this whole film, and we talked about it in part one, throughout part one as well, there is so much Islamic imagery and all these nods to Islamic history and culture and traditions. And I, for one, would like to say, Mashallah, baby! Finally!
Yeah.
Dune is more Muslim. It's always been fucking Muslim. And it's never been showcased as that way until now. A couple of examples that come to mind. You mentioned Stilgar and the Jinn.
Yeah.
Genie are a long-held storytelling tradition. Many stories and fairy tales in Asia, in Africa, in Muslim communities across those continents contain genie and jinn.
Mm-hmm.
And you're goddamn right that Stilgar believes in them.
Yeah.
Amazing that we got that little touch of Islamic history and Islamic storytelling in Stilgar's character. Another example, all throughout this film, it's slapping you in the face with everything that the Fremen are wearing. The Fremen garb, the Fremen architecture is all heavily inspired by Arabic and Middle Eastern and Egyptian design. That aesthetic is all over this film.
Yeah.
So many scarves and so many like people in long, loose, flowy clothing with like embroidery, intricate and gold embroidery all over it. That is the type of clothing I grew up watching my mom wear. And now I'm seeing the Fremen wear it on screen in one of my favorite stories that is inspired by the same culture that my mom is from and that I'm from.
Yeah.
Amazing. That touched me so deeply. We also see in this film groups of Fremen praying.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that like all praying is basically the same. It involves some sort of like getting on your knees and doing hand motions.
Right.
But there is no way that the praying we saw in this film wasn't intentionally meant to mimic the way that Muslims pray, the way that like I was taught to pray growing up.
Yeah.
All the correct movements were there. All the hand movements were there. And fucking fight me on this because I would know. I've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
I saw the hand movements. Loved it.
Yep.
Loved these nods to the original inspiration for the Fremen people. And I do want to step back and I want to say, I've already seen some tweets and hot takes out there. This is inevitable that there will be some sort of backlash, but there are folks out there who are seeing this imagery in the film and getting real twisted about it, right? Like claims of appropriation and claims of fetishizing Islamic history and culture and imagery for the sake of telling a white person's story.
Right.
To be clear, I'm not here to tell anyone what they should think about this movie or how they should feel about it or how any of the imagery should affect them. And I'm certainly not here trying to speak for any Muslim out there or any other people of color out there who watch this film. This is my opinion. But as someone who is deeply knowledgeable about this world and this story, I don't see anything disrespectful being done here on the screen. Mm-hmm. In fact, we're seeing these Fremen people who are ignored, subjugated, and disrespected by the larger powers that be in the Imperium, being hoodwinked, manipulated, and colonized by the rich and powerful houses of the Great Imperium, the white people, let's say, who want their resources and their talents, their fighting abilities, and their deep desert knowledge. And that statement, that idea that is very present and very clear in this film, should sound so fucking familiar to anyone who has passed 8th grade history.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents on that. I know inevitably there are going to be takes out there that disagree with me on this. I'm interested in hearing those takes. I will certainly read those takes and keep an open mind, but I, for one, don't see it. I don't see anything wrong with the way things were represented in this film visually. And in fact, I think many things were done right. And I think many things were done respectfully for both honoring the source material and honoring the culture from which that source material drew inspiration and from which Frank drew inspiration. And I, for one, appreciated seeing parts of my culture up on the screen in such a big blockbuster film.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, like, I appreciate that you're being sensitive to other people's having like valid alternative takes, but like this is you seeing your culture and seeing things that are important to you on the big screen and being represented by a filmmaker who, if he were following the trends in Hollywood, doesn't necessarily have to do that. He could just whitewash it like so many people have whitewashed everything.
Totally.
So it's like, fuck yeah. No one can take that from you. That's sick. That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. As a white man, I approve.
Oh my gosh. As a brown person, I've been seeking your approval this whole time, and I've finally gotten it.
As it should be.
Don't cancel us. We're joking.
No, and
oh boy.
With that, on that note,
on a very heavy topic, maybe I should have started with that one. Anyway,
no, it's fine. But listen, if you're still listening, you've seen this movie, we've seen this movie. We want to hear what you think about it.
Yeah.
Tell us your thoughts. You just saw the movie, send us an email. gomjabarpodcast@gmail.com.
Right.
What was your favorite scene? What criticisms did you have? We had to really pick our brains. We did come up with some that we'll talk about in our, massive 6-hour thing.
Totally.
But, what criticisms did you have? What did you love? What brought you to tears? What made you laugh out loud? We want to hear all of it. Again, maybe you have friends and family who have excommunicated you because you talk about Dune too much. Welcome to the club. We're still here for you. So
that's right. You have a new family now.
We are your family. Parasocial family. And on that note, we have some ways that you can support us, where you can support the family. Oh,
that's right.
That's starting to sound a little culty.
It's sounding a little culty, but I'm going to go ahead and lean in. You can help this family stay intact and stay together.
Yeah.
By becoming a patron on patreon.com/GomJabar. You get some cool benefits. You get ad-free episodes. You get early book club. Check it out. That is the single best way to support this show and make sure that we can continue to do what we do for years to come. Another great way is to check out our merch store at gomjabarshop.com. We have some really great swag there with custom-made designs. Check all of that out. Get yourself something nice. Get a loved one something nice. A family member, perhaps. All of those links are going to be in the show notes below, so please check them out.
I was thinking about, because we both wrote in our notes, still suit full of piss.
Yeah.
Just like immediately, as soon as it was said. Mm-hmm. What if we made a white T-shirt with just our handwriting of "still suit full of piss" on the chest?
I like that idea.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me with a good time. Either that or just Cheops. Like it was funny the things that you and I both just immediately instinctively wrote down.
I mean, Jamis Juice.
Jamis Juice
was one that ended up in both of our notes.
I mentioned this on the Patreon. The software could not tell that my handwriting was writing. It was like,
really?
What are these scribbles? It wouldn't allow me to redact it, so I had to like manually block it out. It was very strange.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my handwriting is terrible.
I thought you have good handwriting.
It's okay sometimes when I can see, but I was also watching as I was writing words. So
right, in pitch darkness.
In pitch black,
I couldn't really see what I was writing. Yeah. Well, there's some great merch ideas from Dune Part 2.
Still
that we should
full
maybe
of
jump
piss.
on.
Well, friends, there is no real ending. It's just the place where you stop the recording. But this podcast is always one step beyond logic, so help spread the word of Muad'Dib and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And be sure to check out the other shows on the Lord Party Podcast Network on lordparty.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at lore_party. We're also on TikTok at Gom Jabar Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, whoever controls the podcast controls the universe. We'll see you on the golden path.